This past Friday, I had the opportunity to travel to the Gulf of Mexico along with three of our colleagues, Senator Mikulski, my colleague from Maryland, Senator Vitter from Louisiana, and Senator Merkley from Oregon. All of us know the importance of coasts. We represent states in which are on the coast, and we know how important it is to our economy. We know how important it is to our way of life. We wanted to visit to see firsthand the impact of the BP oil spill is having on the communities in the Gulf of Mexico. And I must tell you, seeing it firsthand, you can really start to understand the magnitude of this disaster. You can see the horrific impact it's having on the people of that region. You can see the anger in their eyes. You can see the desperation of people who are no longer working. And you can see the oil. You see the oil all over. You see it in the water. You see it in the marshes. You see it on the coast. It is a horrible thing to see. We visited the area known as Grand Isles. Now, Grand Isles is a beach area not too far from New Orleans. Beach Isle is a beach community. It's a city. Reminds me a little bit of Ocean City, Maryland. And I just was thinking of how the people of Maryland would be responding if they knew that Ocean City would not be opened for this season. For you see, when we saw the area of Grand Isles, it was empty. No one was on the beaches. Well, there were some people on the beaches working, cleaning up, but no tourists. No people, no children enjoying the water. Couldn't go into the water. Having a horrible impact on the economy of not just Grand Isles, but the entire region. We then had a chance to go by boat to see Queen Bess Island and Pelican or Bird Island, which are two of the major islands that are used by birds for nesting. And we saw oil. We saw oil on the booms that had been deployed. We saw oil on the rocks on the island itself. And more tragically, we saw birds that were covered with oil. This should never have happened. I think it just strengthened our resolve that the priorities that we must have in this Senate, the priorities that government must follow, is first, of course, is to stop the flow at the wellhead, because oil is still gushing out into the Gulf of Mexico. Oil appears sometimes unexpectedly at different locations, so the game plan has to use the best technologies we have with booms and skimmers to keep the oil from reaching sensitive areas. Admiral Watson, who is the Coast Guard command, reviewed with us the strategy. Well, we think that it's important for the command to set performance standards for BP across the board. We also think that we have to have the right organizational structure. Let me just mention one point that was troubling to us. Yes, we saw booms that had been deployed, but they were not maintained. And if they're not maintained, oil gets to the shores, killing birds and killing our environment. Well, we have to make sure that that is corrected. And I want to thank Admiral Watson. He got back to me Saturday night. We had a conversation with Senator Boxer, and steps are being changed. That's why we have to have performance standards on BP oil. We got to make sure that we are in control as to making sure that all technologies are deployed to protect our environment. And then, yes, Mr. President, we have to hold BP fully accountable for all the damages. We all talk about that. We all talk about how they have to be fully accountable, but let us remind the public. BP, in getting the permit to drill, said they had proven technology to deal with any type of incident. They were not truthworthy on that statement. They didn't have that. So they have to be held fully accountable. We're talking about criminal investigations that'll go where it may, but they clearly have to pay all the economic and environmental damages. The economic damages are clear. We talked to fishermen who aren't fishing this season. They don't know if they'll ever go back to fishing. We talked to one fisherman who, for generations, his family had been in the business, and he doesn't know if he'll be able to continue. We saw shop owners where nobody were in the shops. We saw boats that would normally be out for charter fishing weren't out. BP has to be held fully accountable for all the economic damages to the small business owners, to the property owners. And I strongly support the effort of our majority leader. I support the effort of the president to see BP put money into a trust fund with independent trustees so we can expedite the process. It doesn't do a business center any good if he has a long list of documents he's got to fill out and doesn't get the help in order to keep his business afloat. So we need to have a streamlined process so those who have been victimized are able to get their relief as quickly as possible. I think an escrow fund makes a great deal of sense. $20 billion seems like a reasonable start, and I hope that we will move forward. I know the President's meeting with the CEO of BP Oil on Wednesday. Tomorrow, I hope that will lead to the resolution of that issue. Let me point out, BP also has to be held responsible for the environmental damages. It's going to go well beyond the Gulf of Mexico. The loop current is bringing the oil around the Keys onto the east coast of the United States. It'll affect many regions, including my region in the Mid-Atlantic. We know that many of our migratory wildlife travel through the Gulf. We don't know whether they'll be returning to Maryland. We don't know what impact it's going to have on our bird population, on those who enjoy the hunting on the Eastern Shore, those who enjoy bird watching, those who understand the importance of the diversity of our wildlife, whether we'll be endangering different species. That all needs to be documented. We need to mitigate, but then we need to document. We are holding hearings next month to start the accounting process, to make sure there's an independent, objective accounting as to the full damages that BP has caused in its related organizations, economic damages, environmental damages. And then, Mr. President, going forward with drilling. We all understand that mineral management is a critical part of our energy strategy. But we can't drill unless we have an independent agency issuing the permits. We've got to make sure that the public's interest is protected as new permits are granted. And yes, Mr. President, there are areas where we don't drill today because they're just environmentally too sensitive and there's just not enough oil to worth the risk. And I include in that the area that I represent in the Mid-Atlantic.